Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to cloud test lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
That we are providing to the client. So on the server side, you can provide a static resource just like your HTML page, or else you can provide some kind of dynamic pages like JSPs and also the servlet kind of resources. So between client and server, we'll use a protocol. The data will be transferred by using a protocol called HTTP protocol. And if you are not familiar with about HTTP protocol, just Google it for that, and you should get the details from the Google only. And while sending the request or while receiving the response from the server, either it can be servlet JSP or normal HTML page, the whole response will be sent to the client in the form of a HTML page only. So if you take a look at our h2kinfosys.com site, here there is a request a demo form was available. When I have entered all the details and when I click on the submit button, it will send a request to the server, and the server will process the request, and in turn it will send a response back to the client. So here there are two perspectives. The first one is client perspective and the user. User is just like whoever is using the web page, just like us. Normally the client web browser will be called as a client. So here the web browser, my web browser is Google Chrome. You can use Internet Explorer or Mozilla, Opera, or any kind of stuff. So the web browser knows how to display the data by processing the HTML form. So web browser can only understand in terms of HTML form only or HTML content only. It can't understand Java language or any other kind of stuff until and unless there is a server available to process that. So that means whenever you are submitting the request, let us say, take a look at this one only. Whenever you have entered all the information and when you click on the submit button, it will prepare a request. It will prepare a request with all the form details. This is the form with all the form details, and it will send a response to the server. So the browser knows what are all the parameters available on the form or how to generate a HTTP request and how to submit the form to the server. Yesterday we have discussed about the action attribute, which specifies about the server resource details. So in this diagram, you can see that on the left side, which is web browser, just like your client, and the web browser is submitting a form. This is the web browser. This is the web browser here, and here we are submitting the form. When it has prepared the request, so currently we are submitting the form using get request. And once a GET request has triggered, so that means we have submitted the form using GET request, and once we have submitted the page, the request will be sent to the server. Here we are going to configure our Tomcat, Apache Tomcat server, but here you can see that the Apache Tomcat was divided into two parts. The first one is Apache Web Server, and the next one is Tomcat Web Container. So whenever a client has sent any request on the server side, the first thing will be received, the first part will be going to receive the request is your web server. So whatever the request it has sent, see, while sending the request, the web browser knows what are all the parameters that are available, and also it contains certain information like what is the URL or what is the resource to which we want to send the request, and also what is the method, HTTP method that we are using. So the web browser sent form parameters and also the HTTP method and also the resource. Resource is nothing but, normally it will be called as URL part. URL is nothing but just like your www.h2kinfosys.com. So once a web server has received the request, it will hand over the request to web container. Web container, once after the server, web server, the next part will be handled by web container. Web container is nothing but just like a Java application which will perform all of the ground level work for your servlet. Forget about servlet, no need of any kind of definition or any other information. We are only discussing about server and web container. So whatever the request it has received at the web server level, it will just pass on the request to your web container. We'll see what is the necessity of web container and why there are two levels available, and all those things. We'll take a look at that one later. So the next thing is the web container will be going to receive the request, and until this point your information, whatever the HTTP request information, that was sent by the web browser, it will be in normal text format. But for our Java, we can't understand the data if at all if it was in normal text format. Everything we want the information or the properties to be in terms of an object. So your web container is responsible for creating objects which are required for our servlet. Your web container will perform all of the ground level work in the sense, see, this is a client and this is the server. First of all, to discuss between two clients, we need to have some kind of socket communication. So socket communication will be maintained by your web server. Socket means you are just like discussing between two computers. So that means you can only discuss between the two sockets only that are available on the computers. So those kind of ground level work will be taken care by your web server, and also some other additional content will be performed by our web container. We'll take a look at them later. So once after that, your web container decides what is the resource that our client is asking. See, in our web container, there will be a lot of resources available. Yesterday we have discussed about some of the resources, just like our date resource or currency resource. So these are the two resources that are available under my application. So that means you might ask for date resource or you might ask for currency resource. So that means there will be several number of resources available on your server level. So your web container will identify what is the resource that the client is expecting and once after that, the request will be sent to that particular resource. Once the resource has received the request, let us say the currency resource. The currency resource will receive the request and it will process the request, and once after that, it will prepare the response and it will follow the same path to send the response as well. So that means the response will be sent first to the container and then back to the web server and then back to your web browser. See, if we enter some data in google.com, let us say Java search. Once after you click on enter, it will submit the request to the server and it will fetch us all this information. Once after the response has received, again the response will be in the format of HTML only. That will be taken care by your web server. Once the response has sent back to the client or browser, the browser knows how to display the content based on the HTML processing. We'll discuss about all these modules in detail. But the first thing we need to know is how the process flows between client and server and how the resource will be identified and how the response will be sent back to the web browser. So whenever a client has sent a request to the server, we'll just think that we are entering some form and then we are submitting the request to the server. We'll think that server will take, we already know that server will get all these details, but internally it also gets some other information like what is the HTTP method on which the form has submitted. Yesterday we have learned about two methods, get and post. So whenever a client has, the web browser submits the request, it uses, let us say the form has submitted by using get method, and it also specifies the HTTP version like 1.0 or 1.1, and it also specifies the URL path. URL path is nothing but, let us go here. So here it is H2KInfosys.com. Here I am clicking on the button about us. So you can see that h2kinfosys.com/index.php/about. So this was written in PHP language, and you can see that there is some extra URL path which is about that got added to your URL. And when you click on courses, let us go and click on some level. So when I click on each and every button, you'll see that the URL is getting changed. So that means whenever you have clicked on any button, the form will get submitted to the server, and this link will be associated with an action. With an action, that action will be specified in the URL part as /login or /courses or /services. So whatever that we associate with respect to our client code or client HTML code, that will be passed to the server, because the server has to understand what is the resource that you are expecting on clicking on this button.
Krish?
Yep.
Since that frame on the left-hand side is common to all the pages, when it says submit here, that where to submit is not from where you're sitting, right?
Sorry?
When you go to your website, here, this request a demo is a common frame to all the...
No. I'm sorry. We are not at all interested about HTML form submissions right now.
Okay.
We are only working on the server side.
Okay, when you click on it, immediately every time does it go to the server? If you click on courses, if you click on services, if you click on client?
Based on our form design.
Okay.
Once after that, when a form has submitted with GET request, yesterday we have mentioned about query parameters. Query parameters are nothing but your form parameters. So currently, let us go and execute one page. So this is my login page, and this is just a static page. Here you can see that I have two text boxes, enter username and enter password. Here I'll place some information and then I'll submit the request to the server. So let us say Steve. So I'm clicking on the submit button. Take a look at the URL. Currently this was login.html. I'm clicking on submit button and this has changed to web content /login. How it has added /login in the place of /login.html. Let us take a look at the HTML code. Yesterday we have mentioned about the form tag. The form submission will be based on the action attribute and the method as well. Whenever you have submitted the form with respect to post method, let us change this to get. We'll take a look at get first. Let me submit one more time.
Krish, I have a doubt here, Krish. Here, what did you use to create this HTML page? Was it just Notepad?
Yeah.
And then you stored it as HTML?
Yeah, that's it.
Krish, how did you actually edit that file, Krish? Because once I save it as HTML, I'm not able to edit it again.
Right click and open with Notepad.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Krish.
Yeah. So here, take a look at the URL. Once again, this is login.html. After web content, you have /login.html. And now I'm clicking on the submit button. And here you can see that the URL has changed to previously this was .html. Once I have clicked on the submit button, the URL has changed to /login. Until this point, everything was same. Until this point, so only change was at this level. And here you can see that a question mark got added, and it consists of two parameters. The first one is username equal to Steve, and the next one is password equal to Steve. I have entered those two information at this level, Steve and Steve, which are added as query parameters. These parameters are called as query parameters, or you can say form parameters. Come back to your HTML page first. My file name is login.html. So when I have opened the file, it will be definitely login.html. So the login.html is just like a static resource, and the path is H2K servlet project.webcontent. So when you click on submit button, it will verify what is the action that was associated. The web browser will verify what is the action that got associated with the submit button. Currently the action was login. Then it will replace the existing resource URL path, which is /login.html, and it will replace with /login, which was specified within your action tag, because you want this resource on the server level. Currently, you got an error message. but that's fine. We are not interested about that. Whenever you are submitting the form with respect to get method, your query parameters or your form parameters will be appended to the URL, just like this way. The parameters will be specified as name equal to value. The name which you have mentioned within your input text. Currently I have mentioned as the name, username, and the value, whatever that you have entered in the front end. And in the same way for password as well. Password, I have specified that the type as password. That's the reason I'm entering the data in terms of star or normal dots. And the name is here password. Password equal to Steve, whatever that I have entered in the front end. If at all, if you haven't entered anything, it will just send an empty string to the server. One thing that we need to remember, or one thing which is important, is whatever that you have placed within the action tag, that is just like the resource that you are expecting from the server side. Exactly. Bring it back to the same level. So here you can see that /login.html is my resource, which got replaced by your action. And also it has appended all the query parameters and sent the request to the server. Currently I don't have any server associated with the page, or currently my server was not up. That's why I'm getting an error. And the next way is, let us change this to post submission. Enter the data, Steve and Chris. Now take a look at the URL. Now this is /login.html. Now I'm clicking on submit button. Now you can see that the query parameters are not available. Only /webcontent/login was available. So that means only up to this part was available. Ultimately your action won't change because your action attribute, it consists of login only. But only difference between get and post is here get will send the information with the URL. Get will send the query parameters with the URL, whereas post will send the information with respect to HTTP body. So whatever the information that was available, this will also send, but here this will send the information as HTTP body. So the HTTP body, this is called the HTTP body, which consists of all the information like what is the method and what is the HTTP version and also what is the URL, and along with that it also consists of the parameters as well. Until now, we have discussed about request. During the response also, let us say the the client has requested something and we have processed the request as well. And once after that, we are supposed to send a response from our server side. The response consists of status code, which specifies either it is success or error. There are plenty of HTTP status codes available. I'll tell you some of them. 200, which specifies OK response. 404, page not found. 500, I guess 500 errors you might have already seen with normal web pages also. Internal server error. So once a request has submitted, from the client side, go back to our existing one. Once a request has submitted to the server from a client side, let us say the client has asked for a resource called login, and on the server side, the login resource was not available. So that means the client is expecting something and the server was not able to process that one. So at that time, the client will specify that, hey, you are expecting a resource which is not available at my level, which is nothing but your 404 error. If at all, if the server has some issues, let us say some coding issue was there, and whatever the client has asked during the resource process, we got some kind of errors. So at that time, you will respond to the client specifying that I'm having some issues from my end, which is specified with respect to 500 errors, which are related to server errors. And the next one is 200. 200 means the client has requested for something and the request was processed properly and it was able to send the response successfully. So 200 is OK response, which is nothing but client success response. Along with status code, it also consists of, yep.
Krish, Soumya here. 404 and 500 is fine, but where can we find the 200 code, Krish, on the page in the reply?
No, it won't be available on the page. It will be processed by the web browser.
Okay. Thanks, Krish.
Yes. HTTP body. The HTTP body, during the request also, we have some HTTP body, and this status code also will be specified within your HTTP body only. The body consists of the status as well as your normal HTML response, and also consists of another important one, which is content type. The content type is available on the request side as well, but it is important while sending the response back to the client. The content type specifies, normally in general format, the content type will be text/HTML, which specifies that the response format, the content type specifies what kind of a response that we are sending back to the client. Normally, it will be text/HTML, which means the response consists of a normal text as well as HTML content. It also consists of text/image. It also consists of text/binary, etc. You can just Google for what kind of content types that are available. The purpose of specifying the content type is based on, let us say you are sending some image back to the client, image information within your HTML response. So for an image, you won't be directly sending the image bytes. You will just specify where exactly the image was available. So that means you will send an URL information. You will send a URL information back to the client where exactly your image resides. Then your browser again queries the URL part, and then it will display the image. So for that particular part, we need to specify that the data was available within text/image format. The main purpose of specifying the content type is how the browser has to display the data, or how the browser was supposed to process the HTML response. We have moved to advanced Java, which means in the enterprise edition, and yesterday we have mentioned that the client server architecture is the fundamental one within our advanced Java. And we won't be having any main method within our code, because you guys might already know about those stuff, but just now only we have discussed about the client server communication. Here you can see that before reaching the request to our servlet, there are two layers available. The first one is your server and your container. So all the requests will be received by your web container first, and then only it will reach to your servlet. servlets are nothing but server-side Java programs. Servlet won't contain any main method. You can write a main method, but it's not at all required to have a main method within your servlet. Servlets reside under the control of container. Under the control of container. So your container is nothing but, you can call them as web container also. Your container is responsible for receiving all the requests from the client. And once it has received the request, it will create, see, all the information, it will be specified in HTTP body. So before servlet handles the request, servlet is also just like a resource. So to handle the request by the servlet, it needs to know what kind of a request I'm supposed to process. And also, it was supposed to prepare a response object and send it back to the client. That's the whole intention of our resource. The resource will receive the request and it will process the request, and finally, it will prepare the response and it will send the response back to the client. But currently, we are not handling all the requests at our servlet level. Before coming the request to the servlet, there are plenty of resources, or there is a Apache web server available and the Tomcat web container available. See, this Tomcat web container is also just like a Java code which is available on the web server. But normally, nobody will call this as a Java code. Everybody will call this as a web container only, because it performs a lot of additional stuff, just like the first one is preparing your request and response objects. So whatever the information that you have sent with respect to your HTTP body, so your HTTP body, previously we have seen the request parameters. See, these are the request parameters. So to our servlet, see, servlet is nothing but just like a simple.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website H2K Infosys.com. On our website H2K Infosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.